5, 4. Oh, didn't even get the whole countdown.
All right.
Oh, the authenticity of this show. Welcome to Crossroads of Cognizance. I am half of this whole Dahlia Rose, a shop owner on the East Coast, holding it down in good old Virginia. And here with me we have.
I am representing West Coast over here, and not in some kind of fancy gangway neither. I'm just here. Um, I wish, but if I threw gang signs, I might inadvertently curse somebody. So I don't want to do that. Got the fingers there. Anyway, I'm Katrina Raspold. I am part owner of Crossroads Metaphysical Store on the East Coast. We're in Shingle Springs, California. And so this is East meets West. This is what's happening on your side of the country, Dahlia, and what's happening on my side of the country, and how is it the same and how is it different?
Absolutely. And here and again, we get about 10 minutes before we hop on here just to kind of spitball what we're about to talk about. And it linked up perfectly once again. We have themes, as mentioned in the post, we have themes of love, obstacles versus distractions. We have the veil thinning as we approach its Samhain, right?
Right. It's coming up.
Bunch of nasty eggs, community, togetherness, and yet altered dreams coming through. So it's going to be an eventful conversation. We're happy to have you here. And I'm supposed to say like and subscribe so you can catch us every week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard. So with that said, again, thank you for joining us. Maybe I'll kick things off this week.
Bring it. So you have a lot going on in your side.
Yes. So with absolute respect for things that my clients go through, it seems to be a recurring theme, and sometimes the theme happens to be very zodiac sign oriented. It wasn't this week, but the topic of love was the theme, and it's something. Love permeates everything that we do. If you want to be able to send healing in a particular way, you have to be in a space of love, unconditional love at that. And if you can't get into that space, it makes it that much harder, right? But in particular this week, with regard to love, I was having conversations with individuals over being in relationships and trying to navigate staying versus leaving. And I think this is a reoccurring for our society as a whole that expects us to have relationships forever and to make it work no matter what. And there are definitely some circumstances where you go, you know what? Okay, I'm going to be with this person. These are the things that I'm willing to accept. And you work it out together. Obviously, that burden can't be carried alone. But interestingly enough, I was having frequent conversations where the individual was carrying the burden alone and just dealing with their partner's drama. And so, I had about 3 or 4 people come to me with this as a challenge this week. And, we're in a Mercury retrograde, so communication is shattered. Everybody was having issues with Facebook today. So, the predominant question would be in these conversations that I was having is, I give to this person, I do everything, I'm here for them, I support them through their stuff that they're having externally outside the relationship, be it, another relationship or work stuff or what have you. Why, if this person does not want to be with me forever, or they aren't willing to commit to marriage or whatever the case is, why would they stay with me? And this is one of the things that I love to spotlight: a person's value, a person's worth. It's, look at all the things that you bring to the relationship and you have your answer. You don't have to ask me that. You already know. Katrina, you were mentioning having that same sort of ordeal. How do you navigate those waters in conversation?
It's such a tough one. And of course, anytime you're in a healer capacity, most of the time, what you're going to be healing in a person is their relationship with someone else, whether that person is a boss or a parent or a child or a lover or a friend. And what I always have to come back to, and this has bitten me a few times, is that we are hearing this person's perspective
Oh,
of that
absolutely.
relationship and what they're experiencing. And that's what's vital. They are our client, we are their advocate. And it's important that we approach energetically from the direction that they're approaching. However, it's important also that we keep in mind that we're not hearing the whole story. We don't know what that other person's um, engagement is from their side and what they're getting,
Absolutely.
what is their experience. And so, we can't really demonize the other person as our client is doing. So, what we have to do is just help them to find a safe ground to stand on where they can make productive choices. And when you're asking the same thing that the client, of course, is asking, which is why won't they leave? I mean, why would they want to be with me? Well, why would they not? What are the reasons? What reasons are you giving someone not to be with them? Because a lot of the time, what you're doing is setting up this perfect storm where you are not adequately conveying your boundaries or defending your boundaries. You're not saying what your needs are. You came in, and make no mistake, you came into this relationship in a support capacity.
Yep.
That was your currency. Look how capable I am. Look what I can do for you. Look what a perfect partner I am. Look at how I compliment you energetically. And then, as that person upped the price of playing poker, so to speak, you didn't cut that off.
Yeah.
You didn't say, no, you know what, I'm not down for that. That's not going to work. And that comes from a strong place of insecurity, of saying, I don't feel like I'm enough, so I need to give and give and give. And pretty soon that resentment's going to come in. And pretty soon you don't understand why they're there if they're going to treat you so disrespectfully. A lot of that also comes from people expecting to be treated the same way they treat other people.
Absolutely.
And
That is
that
a
love language is just a bitch. It's just not going to.
it's a
No.
complete false belief.
Yep. So, we have never, that I know of, in our semi-modern American life, been freer to leave a relationship. When I was growing up, you did not get a divorce ever. People who were divorced were absolutely denigrated and were the pariahs. They didn't fit in anywhere. And that was, in the late 50s, early 60s. And so then it became more common to get divorces, but also became more common to be in relationships where you're not married. And so you're in a long-term committed relationship with somebody, or not committed relationship, and you're not legally bound to them. And so where we are now is in this place where if someone is in your life, it's because you allow them to be.
Absolutely.
And I think that that level of power is really hard for some people to carry.
It is, because then the boomerang effect is the blame game. It must be somebody's fault that
Mhm.
things have shifted the way that they have, or and you know, a conversation within myself and a conversation that I'm often having with others is to say there doesn't have to be blame. This can just be a circumstance. Both parties could have been involved, that sort of thing. And, to your point of divorce, I'd found myself watching a TED talk from last year today that talked about, I think it said every 32 seconds, someone's getting divorced in America. And I imagine with 2020 and quarantine that figure went up.
Mhm.
Um, but the power of choice is a major component of all this, and um, this sort of you know briefly segues into one of the other things. I know we'll circle around, but the power of choice. You know, being personally responsible. I think that's something that we talk about frequently on this show, is being personally responsible for where you are in life, and then just choosing to change your mind.
Mhm.
So, um,
Agreed. Quarantine was really a bitch because If you were in a relationship, a cohabiting relationship, and work or social life or traveling, if that was your distraction from the fact that you're not really happy in this relationship, or that this relationship has some serious flaws, that all got stripped away and you're stuck living with this person that you really are finding you don't like.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fell into that. And I think the other side of it is when we got quarantined away from our friends and family and we're not seeing people all the time, we began to realize how our life might be better without certain people in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So I
yeah.
think that quarantine was very clarifying for relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, to throw in another sort of cosmic influence, I don't know if any of our viewers have the Pattern app. But from a world perspective, because so the Pattern app is like a zodiac sign app that gives you updates on what's going on with you, but then it gives you updates on what's going on for the world, and it differs in others that it gives you cycles. It's also a little bit tooty, so you get a notification that's just like, stop being afraid of everything and go out and do your purpose, and you're like, whoa, slow down, like don't talk to me like that.
That escalated quickly.
Right. And so this app, very surprisingly, talked about from Saturday to I think tomorrow that there being an uptick in divorces, disconnection in relationships, all kinds of things outside of, or in addition to, rather, Mercury's retrograde. Like this weekend, these last couple days. So if you're going through that, there may be a cosmic connotation to that, but even then we still have choice. It promoted that. It didn't just say like, oh, you're going to break up with your significant other. It said you are going to get the opportunity to see what's working, what's not, where are your boundaries, and what is tenable in your relationship at this time. It's going to be very highlighted, and this is all before the new moon that's coming up too. So, as human beings, again, choice, start asking yourself, what's working, what's not. And when that new moon arrives, start making new plans, either to do better or to exit. And I don't know about you, Katrina, but I don't ever really tell people to leave a situation. Ask them what they want, and then we'll have conversations around, can this situation give you what you're asking for? Um, but even then, those conversations don't have a timeline. You start making plans now. If those plans come to fruition in 2 years, you were still hopefully working towards rebuilding. I mean, I know after my divorce, I don't think I was fully myself until about 18 months after because of how much I had lost in that connection. And
Mm.
I should say, let go on behalf of my partner. So,
It's a really hard thing, and I've been divorced twice, both from the same person. And we were married a total of 17 years, if you shoved it all together, over a almost 20-year period. And it was just heartbreaking. It was absolutely. Um, I can imagine it would be different, possibly under amicable separation. I didn't have that either time.
mm,
And so it might be different, but still there's that profound sense of disorientation, of futures that are lost, and having to regroup and rebuild and figure out who you are. So it's a really horrible experience. I'm really hoping I don't go through that again. It was really awful. But yeah, a lot of things are coming into clarification now on a lot of levels, and people are getting uh, they're getting to the place that there's a huge establishment of what's meaningful, and like you said, what's working and what's not. But at the same time, for instance, I had a client this week, a dear woman that I've worked with a couple of times, and she's in what can only be described as a horrible relationship, not married, but a long-term relationship. And she talks at length about how abusive this person is. And yet, when you discuss options with her, there is always a reason why that's not possible.
Yeah.
And so in our conversation this week, it was, well, have you considered this? And what about this? And how about this idea? Just trying to give alternatives for where she could live, or what could she do. And it was just like Wonder Woman, just ping, 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 ping. No, nope, can't do that. Nope. There was nothing she could do except stay in that relationship. And that is the box she has painted herself into.
Right.
That and even her friend was there with us giving options.
Oh,
And
wow.
the friend was even saying, "You can come live with me." And no, I don't want to do that. It just, nope, 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 no. Well, okay, let's look at what that's going to look like moving forward. Because if you continue to live here and be this angry, then you're not going to have a quality of life that you want. Forget about the
Not,
other person. You are not going to have what you want in life.
well, I feel like that also starts to affect health, right? Like
Oh,
our
absolutely.
bodies are not meant to handle constant stress. They're just not. No matter how much we up the ante in this country as far as stress is concerned, it doesn't mean our bodies are following that path. They are the same. They are not, our bodies are not functionally improving to handle stress. Our
No,
brains are just cutting off the connection. That's it.
that's right.
And,
It is very much becoming, nope, can't deal with this, and just shuts down,
yep.
or gets hyper focused on something else.
Yep.
And
Just to feel
meanwhile,
important.
yeah, meanwhile, we're still having those stress related reactions. We're just not dealing with them.
Yep.
And that brings me to one of the things that I have as a theme, and that is that I have people having very specific types of dreams. They're
Mm,
not dreaming the same thing, but the same type of thing. And very vivid, very intense dreaming. And it seems to be, I believe, stress related, because when we are unable to work through something in our conscious mind, it sort of takes over in the subconscious with dream time. And so what I'm seeing are people who are having work dreams where
mm.
all through the night they're dreaming that they have an impossible task that they have to accomplish. And they work and they work and they work at it, and even will wake up, get a drink of water, go outside, wash their faces, go to the bathroom, come back in, get into bed, go back to sleep, and pick up the dream right where they left off. And so that's been an ongoing theme. So they wake up exhausted because they feel like they were working all night long. And it's not always physical work. Sometimes it's, I have to pass this test, this math test, or I have to, clean this room. I have to, there's always something that absolutely has to be done. And last night it was sorting clothes. Last night I dreamed that had I had been involved with some, like a church rummage sale or something like that. And we had all of these tables of clothes, and I had to go through and sort them by size and gender. And there were just so many, and it just kept going on and on and on. It's just stupid dreams like that are very exhausting. The other thing that we're having and seeing a lot of are dreams where people are being chased by something, or
Mm.
something's trying to kill them, or where they are lost and can't find where they need to get to.
Oh,
And
wow.
those are just, we always have common dreams. Like everybody at some point usually dreams they're flying, or dreams that, they have some type of magical abilities or something like that. Now these are frequent, like people are dreaming them on the same nights
Oh, wow.
over and over. And so that's been a theme. And I think that that's part of that anxiety that we're talking about. That,
Absolutely. The body materializing the chemical stress and then sends it right back up to the brain. And the brain's like, I don't know what to do with this. Wait a minute, they're asleep. Let's try to, right, shake her and see if she'll get it. And you had mentioned in class an increase in visitations too.
oh man, yeah.
I know over the last week I had several visitations and dreams, and you talked about working, and I recall an instance where I was dealing with somebody who was deceased, and unfortunately their baby, I guess, had been deceased with them. and they were like, please just help me. And so I felt like in that dream, like I was okay, I'm working, and I hold this baby for them, and they're like, thank you, and they're trying to get rest. And I mean, the you mentioned before the broadcast, or what we're walking into as far as this time of year.
Well, at Samhain, the veil's thinning. It always does so. We always have an increase in spirit activity a lot, almost as soon as we hit October. October seems to be that weird step through over the threshold. But as we get closer to the 31st and the 1st, it just gets to be more and more intense every year. And this year, it's just complete batshit. This year has just been full blown crazy spirit activity. And like when we were doing our broadcast Thursday night, we were in the main store, and the portal that we use for broadcasting follows movement so that it sees everybody. And, somebody was standing right behind us and kept standing up. And so the portal would just go up way high because we're sitting down. And we're like, Jerry, fucking stop, man. We can broadcast because the spirits in the store have just been nuts. And we were having karaoke the other night, and I literally saw, and I mean with my eyeballs, not spiritually saw, a man walk down the deck, but I couldn't hear footsteps. And I was right, on the other side of the window. It was a few feet away. But I could see a man in blue jeans and boots walking down the deck. And I was like, oh, somebody needs something. And so I went outside because it was late at night. I went outside, opened the door, and went out there, and nobody's there. And Figwe, who is signed on, she's like, I saw that too. So it's really weird. They're really bold this year. They're right out there. Now, one of the reasons, and we talked about this a little bit in our class, is that we've got so many people dying. So many people have died in the last 2 years, and they died without their family and friends there because of COVID. So they're confused. Right. They've got unfinished business. They weren't expecting to die yet. So there's this huge backlog of spirits trying to get through the veil. And then you got the aggressive spirits that want to get through the veil and normally can't. And now it's super thin, and all of these other spirits are milling about. So they're just wiggling their way in. Oh gosh, 50 years ago, this happened and this happened and this happened. You're like, slow down.
Now's my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, so as you were sharing about the spirit activity, I started to wonder how much, so like 2020's Halloween was very subdued. And I mean, I think I had the benefit of a friend creating a safe environment for our kids to watch movies, but that was it. We did our best with Dia de Muertos and having a small ofrenda and all of these things. And this year, it almost seems like maybe everybody from last year's is just starting to get their sea legs spiritually, because, that takes a period of time. And when you're thrust into the other side without family, without knowing, with the expectation that, oh, I'm going to get over this and be back to my normal life, having a year to process that, and now being like, no, I'm moving everything in this house. You're going to pay attention to me now. It just seems appropriate.
That's funny because in our discussion about poltergeist activity, we were talking about how often poltergeist activity is not malicious. It's just trying to get the attention so that you can get your message across. Yeah. I would not make a good ghost. I'd be throwing shit everywhere.
Right. Having the best time. I have so many haunting plans. Oh man. With the veil thinning, with Samhain coming, Halloween for those that celebrate, and then Day of the Dead for those that celebrate, it highlights one of the other topics that came that found itself in my shop this week, which was obstacles versus choice. Now, this is, again, an ongoing theme, much like love, where folks are like, I have blocks. I know I have blocks. This must be a block. And then we talk about it and it's like, oh, okay, so you could leave this job or at least start making plans, save your money, do what you got to do. And you have this side business that you adore that's just been simmering on the stove for 2 years now, and you still feel drawn to do it. And like and so you know I always like to highlight, is this a real obstacle or is it a distraction?
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is, an obstacle is challenging to move. An obstacle might be, a boss that hates you and refuses to promote you. That's an obstacle. Let's get some candles, some bitch be gone, like whatever you got to get that going, or leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is it an obstacle or is it a distraction? And the distractions are a little bit easier to move through once you have choice. So many of us walk through our lives with values that we've been handed, and never really sit to ask, well, what do I believe? What do I want? What
Mm-hmm.
do I feel like I deserve? And that's another frequent conversation, is why do you feel like you don't deserve more? And
Something
then
that I would add to that is, is it an obstacle? Is it a distraction, or is it a redirect? Is it telling
mm,
you you don't need to be here? You need to go do this. And another thing about this year right now is people are getting put to the wall. They're being shown, make your changes now. And that is the critical thing that I see in what you're describing there. People want those obstacles gone like magic, burning one candle, get rid of the obstacle. Okay, I'm clear now. $15, please, kind of thing. You know, they, but they want all of that to happen without them having to change anything
yeah.
or put forth any effort. They
Hmm.
don't want to risk anything. And that's why your obstacle, or if it is an obstacle, that's why it doesn't want to move, because you don't want to put yourself out there and put effort into it. If it's a distraction, you know, you don't want to risk anything. So, like with that little side job, you don't want to have, you don't have the balls to just go out, into the deep end of the pool and say, okay, this thing has to make me survive now.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to be safe, and you do not move forward with safe.
Nope.
You have to take those risks. And um, and then the redirects. People don't want to hear that this job that they've loved for 12 years is no longer where they need to be. They don't want to go back out there and look for another job, make themselves vulnerable to other employers. They don't want to get out of this relationship and start dating again to find somebody else, or worse, be alone. They
Right.
just they don't want those changes. And so they will stay in a horrible and worsening situation because it used to be good.
Right.
And because they're certain it'll go back to that, when you really have to carefully evaluate where are we now? What's
Right.
really happening now?
Right. And feel free to have that evaluation as often as you need to. It could be, there are times of the year, when we talked in the last broadcast about the fall time being about harvesting what
Mhm.
you've put in. And if you pull up a crop that you chose and it's rotten, all right, you know what? You learned, and
Yeah.
make that shift. And that could be happening on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis. And this all sort of ties back into the time of the year with the veil thinning. I was commenting before the broadcast. I was like, maybe your ancestors are out there telling you, girl, run,
Yeah.
don't stay, you're done,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. And it's like, I love that harvest analogy, because I had a really amazing dinner last week. It was wonderful. The steak was cooked just right. The potato was on point. The broccoli was just so, it was good then. It's probably not going to be good if I pull out of the fridge this week. So if you leave your veggies in the ground too long, they will be bad.
yeah, you might get a little penicillin
Yeah, just
Why you take
mine.
that in?
So what was good for you before isn't. And one of the things that really helps, and I'm really seeing this value as I age, is having people around you that you can trust to speak candidly to you so that you can come to them and say, listen, I'm in this situation. There's a really good chance I'm not seeing it clearly. I admit I'm biased. I need you to give me just the golden truth of what you're seeing about this. And having people who, are who love you enough to answer that call and to say, no, you really need to go. This isn't the job for you anymore. Or no, you're being a puss about this. You're not putting your boundaries up. You're not defending yourself. You're goofing out. You gotta stand up for yourself.
And that really is love, because it takes so much, um, one on the part of the person to speak to their personal bias, like I'm not seeing this clearly, but then on the exchange of that love, another person has to risk that you might fly off the handle
Yeah.
and you might start defending your poor choice, and they're going to get the backlash for it. We've all seen those after school specials where so and so tells the other person that who they like, it doesn't really like them, it's all a joke, it's all a trick, and then it
Hmm.
goes south. And that's because it's a real world thing. We will
Hmm.
fiercely defend our poor choices because we don't want to face that it was a poor choice. Instead of saying I've learned, it's I don't want to be seen as wrong.
That's why, you and I are both on the same page with this and have been since the first breath of this broadcast. Accountability. We have to own those choices and be authentic in ourselves. We have to show up for our own lives because if we don't own those bad choices, we will repeat them and
Yep.
we will look like idiots to the people around us too. And they will be talking trash about us when we're not in the room. So we need to be able to not have the relationship with those friends where we say, okay, I need you to tell me what to do. And they cringe like, oh man, don't put me in that situation. We need to have those friends that are saying, wow, I really admire that you're, standing up for this. And yeah, let's talk about that. Let me tell you what I'm seeing that makes me uncomfortable or that
Yeah.
makes me worry for you. And that's our relationship goals. That's really what we look for. And we have to moderate our own behavior. So if we feel ourselves getting that kick in the stomach, like, okay, I'm about to defend this, that we just shut up and listen and we pull that back. And that will allow people to be more comfortable being truthful with us in the future. We don't want to distance that authenticity.
Absolutely. And it's fully okay. And one of the things I love about my communication with my partner is I will say, okay, I feel like I want to defend this.
Hmm.
So, you need to tell me if it sounds like what I'm doing is this. And to be able to say, to be able to say it feels like I want to, is enough. Sometimes I don't have to go into the defense or, the laugh about it. Like, okay, all right, I'll accept what you said begrudgingly, but I will do it. So, definitely relationship goals. And that wasn't something that we came to naturally. It's love and effort. Nothing is ever effortless.
No. And
Um,
you and I both do not come to that place naturally. That has been one of my ongoing struggles in relationships. And it's one of the things that Eric identifies as our biggest struggle
oh,
is he feels I have no interest in being accountable when I'm wrong, that it's really hard for me to say I'm wrong. And for me, it is, and I'll admit that. But it's also because a lot of times I don't I don't come with a narrative for why I'm doing things.
right.
So if he says, you did that, that was really stupid, you shouldn't have done that. I want to explain to him, hey, this was my thinking. This is why I made that choice. And I recognize that I didn't have a good choice. I didn't have a right choice. This seemed like the less wrong choice.
Right.
And then he will share with me that that was not the less wrong choice.
I, whenever you look up, I know I'm the zodiac person. Whenever these things come up, I'm like, oh yeah, Virgo things. Because whenever you look at the job titles, the job listings for a Virgo, lawyer is up there. And I will often comment that I missed my calling as a lawyer because I do have reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I may not have had an attachment to why in the beginning, but I can tell you step by step the choices that I made.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to talk about it. Like, okay, if you really think I'm wrong, then you need to explain these things too. Like, let me hear the whole story. Don't
Right.
just
You
tell me I'm
weren't
wrong.
there.
Right. Were you talking to the ghost too?
I also struggle when somebody tells me I did something that I know I didn't.
Oh, yes.
And so to their memory, this, and this happened. And I'm saying that absolutely, unequivocally did not happen. I don't know where you got that or what happened that you twisted into that, but that is not what happened. And of course, what do you do with that? Because everybody has their memory of how something happened. And you're sitting here apologizing for something I didn't do it.
So you stop stabbing them in your mind and you go, well, you can't say, because I guess it's condescending to say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
No, you
Um,
can't say that. You have to own it. Like, I'm really sorry. And I've tried it. Like, I'm really sorry that you feel that I did this. No, you did it. Pretty soon it's just like, you know what? Go away. I don't even want to talk to you. You're wrong.
my struggle in that same realm of things is being told that I feel something that I don't.
That's bad too. Don't
Oh
do that.
man.
Don't do that.
First of all, until you claim real estate in my head, which very few people actually have,
Mhm.
do not come to the door presuming to know how I feel, because
Mhm.
it's not good.
And don't label any conversation the way you are. As
Yep.
far as the way I am. Like, what?
Oh.
Excuse? What? Can we
Pardon me,
rewind?
I might have been that way 30 minutes ago, but right now I'm different.
Right. Yeah. Give me room for growth. Okay. So
Oh
yeah, that
man.
that is always a challenge. One of my biggest challenges is when somebody refuses to tell me what I did wrong. They're clearly
Oh,
upset with me.
and
They
they're like, you
maybe
know
even don't
what
want
you
to be
did.
friends with me anymore. And I only pursue to a certain point.
Mhm.
I will get to a place where I'm saying, obviously you're upset. You are important to me. I love this relationship. Please tell me what's happening that's making you uncomfortable with me. Tell me why you're sad. Tell me why you're upset. It's nothing. And then eventually I'm like, okay, bye. Because how much pursuing do you need to do? But at the same time, the relationship ends and I never know what I did. And I've got a couple of really significant, important relationships where we were super, super close and then they just ghosted.
Wow.
And we're talking shit in the community and everything. And I'm like, what did I do? And people come to me, so and so said this, this, and this. Oh, cool, good. Did they tell you what I did? Because I don't know.
It
and yeah,
wasn't a conversation we had.
yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, but again, it all goes back to what we are talking about. These sort of fictitious moments or grouping of, well, you did this in my head, but either I'm telling you and it's not coming out right, or I've made it up to the point where I feel shame about actually coming to the truth and saying that you didn't do
Mhm,
it, that I only
mhm.
hurt my own feelings. These are distractions, you
Right.
know.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. They aren't obstacles, they are distractions.
they are. Somebody will say, well, so and so at work does these things and has these behaviors. Okay, I understand that's upsetting and very frustrating, but what does that have to do with you?
Right.
If you have to stop your work day to deal with them, distracted.
Mhm,
They are not an obstacle.
mhm,
Um, and then you get those crazy stressful dreams where you're running from them or your
mhm.
situation. The sorting laundry dream, I know we touched on that and I'm sort of dialing back. um I want to ask you, like, did it feel like the laundry was life, or I'm probably diving too deep. What?
I think it was about deciding what's useful and what's not, and where to
Hmm.
categorize and put everything. Because of my recent experiences, that's been really forefront in my mind. And
Hmm.
I think that I stopped giving those thoughts any real estate because I'm just tired of thinking about it. So I think that they came out in dream time.
Okay.
But
Okay.
you were talking about the way that we interpret someone's words or behaviors, and I mentioned that we have things we don't remember the same way. And I think a lot of times what happens, you kind of hit on this, is that we all have damage, we all have horrible things that have happened to us in conversation and abuse with other people. And so what will happen is somebody says something that feels close to what happened to you before, and you confuse those two situations, you muddle them together,
Hmm.
and in a way you make the current person responsible for what the abuser did in the past, and that's always super complicated.
This is where I've seen phrasing around, heal your wounds so that you don't bleed on other people. And I feel like that's where that starts to come in. Oh, well, you've said something that they used to say, or even if you can't even remember who said it, the point
Mm-hmm.
is it wounded you deeply enough that it's now coming up and coming out. And you had said in the beginning of all this, a lot of this all leads back to ourselves, and we tend to externalize these circumstances and blame and, hey, you did. But if we take 10 minutes, I say 10 because 10 is hard. Like, if you've ever had to teach for 10 minutes, that shit is really difficult, and 10 minutes is a long time. But if you breathe and give your space time to think and ask yourself, is this coming up from an old situation, or what am I my question is, what am I really mad at? And it's usually a boundary cross. It's usually, I feel like I need to defend myself, so I will eviscerate you verbally,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can't hurt me, because I've taken all your weapons away. But at the end of the day, I've hurt both of us because it wasn't something that I truly wanted to do. But I'm the two of swords. My blindfold is on, and I've got the swords up, and don't come near me because I'm just going to start swinging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Eileen, that's a great point. So
It
we had
is. It is.
a user comment. Eileen, healing the wounds requires finding safety in the body first before you start trying to dive into the deep stuff. Absolutely. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
again goes back to the stress of dreams. And you had mentioned, Katrina, you had mentioned some nasty eggs in your
Dude, okay.
practice.
So we do the egg cleansings, and I now have so many competent healers around me because we're graduating out our advanced healers to go into the master healing class, and a lot of them hung on. Usually we have this huge pairing off where we'll start out with 20 people and end up with 6. And this one didn't as much. This series, we still have a ton of healers. So I'm seeing eggs all the time because they're taking pictures of them. They're bringing them in. Ooh, look at this, look at this, look at this. And there are some ugly eggs out there. People are going through a lot. And you posted one that was just, woo, haunted. And it was
Yeah.
the word that came to me. It just looked like somebody was just broken. They were
Yeah.
just devastated. And so, yeah, there's been a run of people having processing really complicated, painful stuff. And what's nice is they're processing it. They're
Yes.
getting it out of them. And it's when you bury that stuff and let it build and grow. And we have a process with the egg reading where if somebody has a number of curses or crossings or attachments or traumas that create formations in the egg, those formations will join together and begin to work cooperatively within the person's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes an entity formation because it is a sentient process in your body that's informing how you're going to engage the world. And we're seeing more and more entity formations lately of
Yep.
people that have long-term pains that are starting to drive the bus, so to speak. So that,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that they're not even behaving authentically because they have so much damage inside of them that's taking over. So get those spiritual cleansings, you guys.
Absolutely. And I think that from, so I have a psychology background, and one of the topics that always fascinated me was learned helplessness.
Hmm.
And now being in the metaphysical community, I really see, we talk about choice and how powerful that is. You can get to a place where those hauntings, so to speak, or those curses that form into an entity start whispering in your voice, you aren't good enough,
Hmm.
you're going to fail at this, you shouldn't even try. And to some degree, yeah, they might say, you might be better off dead. And that is not to disempower your ability to choose, but you may be so fogged up. I'm seeing
Hmm.
that a lot around the eggs as well. A lot of foggy, misty kind of energy that is confusion. And so I think we're really in a time with these nasty eggs, as you're mentioning, where it's better to get the cleansing and sort out the rest. You were commenting in class. I think it's striking me now as this is maybe why you have so many competent healers, is because they're getting cleansings, as you mentioned, as practice, like
Hmm.
3 times a month.
Oh, absolutely. People are getting a lot of work done, and especially in that class because they're practicing on each other. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of healing going on. And it's interesting to watch the physical presentation of people who have frequent spiritual healings because their skin will clear up, their physical condition improves, the lights on in their eyes. They just, you can just see the color in their cheeks. They really are demonstrating a spiritual vitality. And I enjoy seeing that quite a bit. I do.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it is a hard time, and people are adjusting to it in different ways. And I'm concerned about the people who are just living in the misery rather than doing
Mm,
anything about it. And we're seeing a lot of that too. And I really love that you were talking about the learned helplessness. And one of the things they teach us in psychology about that is the experiment they did where I think it was Doberman puppies, I want to say, where they raised them in an environment where they were covered all the time, like the pen that they were in had a top on it.
mhm.
And so they took the top off, and the dogs could very easily jump out, and nobody did because they didn't know how. Even though they could just pop right over it, they had
Yep.
learned to stay in that fence and not be able to get out. And I see people doing that all the time, the learned helplessness, just like the client I was talking about earlier. She has learned she can't leave that relationship. And so she will aggressively defend that continuation
Yep.
because
Her own
anything,
cage.
yeah. And I always equate it to that frog in the saucepan, where the frog is in the pan on the stove and the water's nice and cold. You heat that water up a little bit at a time. That frog doesn't know when to jump out and eventually boils.
Yep.
And we let ourselves stay in hot water that's getting worse and worse until it's outside of our own control anymore.
Absolutely. The cage isn't real, Eric said. Eric Wolf. My analogy tends to be the story of how elephants would get trained in a particular part of the world where, as babies, they would get tied to a tree, they couldn't move,
Hmm.
but that an adult elephant just as easily could. So
Hmm.
by the time that, from youth, being tied to this tree where they felt like they couldn't pull it out or whatever, when they're tied to it, they can't move.
Hmm.
When they finally grow into adulthood, where they're massive and could rip this tree out of the ground, they just don't,
Well,
because
and
in their
horses,
mind.
when
Yep.
they would just take the reins and just wrap them around,
Yeah.
and the horse just stands there because the horse thinks it's tied.
Wild. I mean,
Yeah.
our behavior, it affects so much, and I think this is a great sort of middle ground for choice versus what's going on in your world. There was a lot I was seeing in 2020 as shutdowns were happening and people were being quarantined and losing their jobs and things like that. And there was a lot of talk around basic needs, right? And if one or several of your basic needs are not being met, you may end up in that learned helplessness space where it seems like there is no option. And not that you want to stay there or anybody's, pushing you out. Neither of us are saying that.
No,
But,
no, no.
you know, do what you can. Sometimes it's the small things that make a difference. If you can't physically make a difference, is there a mental shift that could happen? Is there
Mhm.
somebody you could talk to? Is there, if you can't leave the country like you normally would to go on a vacation to get a break, can you drive to a local park and pretend that um, the sewage pipe that's coming out and rushing water is the closest thing to a waterfall that you can get to right now?
Mhm.
Looking for these perfect opportunities to heal your trauma, to completely heal your situation, those don't exist. And what's being presented is in life at all times, even as painful as it can be, is opportunity.
Oh my
And it
God,
took me
yeah.
a long time to actually use that word, because I was like, all this is bullshit, all of it. I'm done.
And what's interesting is the way that people so freely say the words "I can't."
Mhm.
That's just out there. I mean, I hear it so often. People come in and they tell me how much their job, their soul-sucking job, is just killing them. And I say, well, what if you leave and find something else? Well, I can't. I'm tenured. I can retire in 4 years. Yeah, but you may be dead from the stress in 4 years
Yeah.
from what you're describing to me. And well, I can't, I have to have money to live on. Sure, if you're going to live.
Yeah. Not just work
And
to
what
death.
quality of life is that supporting? Um, People don't really accept when you say, but it is a choice. You could. You could quit that job. You could leave that relationship. You could actually never talk to your abusive mother again. You can do those things. Oh, I never could. Sure, you can. It's a choice. And you're choosing to do what you're doing. And until you choose differently, you're going to keep getting what you're getting.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
everybody wants the other party to change. They want that other party to be different
Oh
rather than
yeah.
owning their own behavior and staying.
Choose a different person. Don't expect somebody to operate out of their baseline. Everybody has a baseline. If you are with somebody whose baseline is not to give to you, um, that's not gonna change
That water will flow to the lowest level every time. You
every
may
time.
see some encouraging behavior at times. It will not be the norm.
Yep,
Yeah.
every single time.
And I think we both see that enough in people to be able to say that depressing thing with some degree of authority.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does the way that when you are seeing people, many, many people talking about relationships and viewing relationships in this case study kind of way, does
Mhm.
that affect your relationships with people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There have been times, I mean, not just people, but the people that are closest to me. My kids, I'll hear somebody talking about, their parent that they admired, who worked a bunch and provided for them, but they really wished that they had had more quality or personal time. And I go, oh, this is the universe reminding me that I'm a workaholic. That's what's
Tap tap,
happening
is
right
it
now.
fine?
But absolutely. And being able to, this is where being a healer is one of my favorite embodiments ever in my life, is because you learn. Do not come into any session or conversation assuming that I know more than that person. I'm there to learn with them. And So their situation can inform mine. I try not to project. I try not to absorb. It's hard. Trust me, it's hard. Dahlia has terrible boundaries. But, um, I try to make it a learning scenario. And it's not that I can avoid harder moments in my life, but I can definitely look at that from a 360-degree view, especially if who I'm speaking to is on the opposite end of what I might have been dealing with in my connections. I mean,
Mhm.
I've worked with narcissists before, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh, you actually have the same connections as an empath and are demonized for it. Got it. Okay." And having to like deal with that in myself and my own personal bias. These things and these discussions definitely shift my perspective. I try not to bring them home in negative ways, but I'm human, which is not an excuse but an opportunity to get better more than anything. So
Agreed.
what about you?
Nah. Oh, it absolutely does. Every single one has a message for me in some way, and um, I don't get a nosebleed trying to figure out what it is.
Right.
But when I work with people, I feel like that it's always a two-way street. It's always that spirit is trying to send me a message through these people I almost see as angels that come in for healing. In the Bible, Jesus says that, if you tend to the lesser of us, you tend to me. And not that I think my clients are lesser, but we that tells us to go broad spectrum and pay attention to everybody in society. And so again, like you were saying, somebody comes in that I would normally not want to hang out with. I need to hear their story. I need to listen to what's happening with them because there's going to be something of value there. Somebody comes who's a lot like me and is struggling with a situation. That's going to tell me ways that I might be able to up my game a little bit, or ways that I need to improve myself. But no, the session is about them. It's not about me. It's just
Absolutely.
that there might be moments that I need to look at there for myself as well.
Absolutely. And I just want to give space to Figui, talking about a cycle that she's moving through, finally breaking down the awful cycle of drama in her family that had always made her feel like a trapped child was the most revitalizing experience of her life. And
Can confirm. I know Figway. Yep.
what a beautiful moment! And thank you for sharing your vulnerability, Figui.
We thought we were going to
Um,
lose her there, and she rallied up and just absolutely owned it. She kicked that lesson's ass.
nice.
She got kicked out of a car for that lesson, but she owned it. It wasn't moving at the
Oh,
time, but
okay.
she owned that lesson. She really did a good job. And her spiritual mommy and daddy, which are me and Eric, just couldn't possibly be more proud of her.
Oh, what a lovely, lovely moment to witness. I mean, it sounds like it was powerful, let alone.
Her's a good girl.
So here we are. At the end of our broadcast, we arrive at this place every single time, having shared about love, value yourself. Is this an obstacle, a distraction, or a redirect? The veil is thinning between now and the 31st. So, if there's people that you wanted to talk to that have gone from you, take the opportunity. There's no harm in connecting with your loved ones, and I'm sure they miss you. Um, as we're dealing with dreams, maybe this is a good time to take that lucid dreaming class you put on the back burner as a virtual class that you were never going to take. Maybe it's a good time for that, because I don't know if those altered stressful dreams are really going to change, or because this year is not over.
Well, and we're charting new territory here. So
Absolutely.
yeah, love, heartbreak, destruction, lucid dreaming, dead people. We've got it all here at Crossroads of
And
Cognizance.
just like we always say, you learn to manage. And for everything that we talked about, you asked about the effect of these conversations on my relationships, and I think that these conversations often make us more expanded space holders, because you lose your biases, you lose
Yes.
what you thought, because like you said, the sessions are about them, so
Mm-hmm.
you can't get in there and be like, my dad was a
Mm-hmm.
narcissist too.
Right. Let's
But
bond over that. No.
you can't do it.
Well, and another thing it does is it helps you get you can get session face on. So
Oh, Nelto
you
was
know,
talking about that.
yeah. Hmm, hmm.
Right
See, I
inside your
agree with face.
but outside.
Yeah. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, guys, here we are. We're gonna put this show back in the fridge for another week, so you can hit the replay button, listen back, drop your comments, share your stories. Again, I can't say this enough, we are so much a community. We want to hear from you. So reach out in whatever way feels comfortable. Make sure you're seeking your healing. And we will catch you next time on Crossroads of Cognizance. Have a great night,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.